been traveling far. I got to get there to Houston for that debate tonight. So I'm on RT1, Radio Tribune 1, winging my way there. I hope I don't run into EB1, that Rush Limbaugh plane. He's always giving me trouble trying to fight for those runways. But, well, I hope it's an exciting debate tonight. We're down to what, 5? Or are there going to be 6 on the stage or only 5? I don't know. Might be 6. Hard to keep track now that we're getting down to where you can almost count them on one hand. But it'll be interesting to see how the old Cruz and Trump war shows up, being in Texas, which is Cruz's hometown, if you will. Going to be, if Trump pulls off Texas, I think right now the polls are 32 with real 23% or something, 21 maybe. So anyway, it's going up to be interesting because that's kind of a big prize, Texas, from there. But I'll tell you, organizations in the country are the political parties. You have Democrats, which put up trash, absolute trash, socialist, and a lady that's a god. I mean, what kind of party is that? And then you got the Republicans who are trying to figure out some way to discredit probably the most qualified person we've ever had to take the time when he doesn't need to do this. Trying to repay the country for what the country, he was born into some money, I grant that, but so are a lot of people. And a lot of the generations that inherit money don't really come up to the plate too often and make too many home runs. There's a saying, I don't know how it is, but it's like every third generation, you get another winner. So you have to go through 2 in the middle occasionally to certainly pulled up to the plate. He's done a much more resume than his dad ever, because the buildings that the properties that Trump owns, whether you like him or whether you don't, you have to give him one thing. He serves his name, some premier, and that pull that off. This is beyond luck. Delegation skills, the way that he gets the job done, hiring the right people, the right job at the right time. He seems to have a talent for that. It's a lot of static over that from all the jealous people that wish they had one. But the premise of his show, The Apprentice, is a great idea. Jobs to work for him, and I just think it was a great idea that so you can't take that away from him either. He's had some candidates that come out of that thing. He's had celebrity apprentices. So anyways, it's Marco Rubio or Ted Cruz, or talking about him, or I hope we can forget talking about him. But we need new leadership. We need leadership. That's what we need. Trump's been a leader, and Trump is a leader, and that's what we need. And all you have to do to see that and be aware of it is to watch, look, see with your own eyes, entrenchment of the Republicans. I don't know what, because they're losing their power. And let me tell you something, they need to lose their power. It's over my head. I just cannot understand how a guy like that and then he crams Obamacare down our throats. Harry Reid and Nancy Pelosi use every trick in the book. Harry Reid even comes up with something, maybe being from Nevada, I don't know, but nuclear option. Can someone tell me what the hell a nuclear option is? Doesn't sound very good, I'll tell you what, and it worked. And that's even scarier because they've jammed down 6 to 7% of the national GMP down our throats and hijacked our healthcare system. And what has the results been of that? Nobody has their own doctor anymore. You lose your medications. You fight and fight with every step of the way trying to get your right medications. Everything's in a turmoil. Can you imagine a single payer system where you're going to have to depend upon the government and maybe the death squads? And if you think there aren't going to be a death squad, Obama's already indicated what his opinion is. Is some lady asked him about some sort of a heart pacemaker or whatever for an elderly mother who was, I don't know, 90 years old or whatever her age was. And Obama said, well, just have her take a pill. She's old enough, you know. We don't need to be spending any money on getting her heart fixed up because she's not going to be long for the world anyways. I mean, this is what you get, folks. This is it. This is the this is government-run healthcare. Is that really what you want? I mean, if you don't have money and you're poor, well, you have to take whatever you can get, I guess. That's just the way things work out. But and if you depend upon the government to take care of you, you're in trouble because they're not capable of doing that. Everything the government touches, everything they try to do collapses because they don't have any talent. What they have are bureaucracies, and they hire these people through nepotism, families, hire cousin Mary, whatever. It goes on and on and on, where if you know someone in a government job, you use that connection to get a government job yourself. And now government jobs used to be not up to the level of private sector jobs, where you were doing a duty kind of, kind of an obligation to work for the government to help your community out, and then you could go in a private practice afterwards. But now things seem to have flip-flopped, and that's what the normal recourse or travel of most things are. That's the way they progress. You get the bureaucrats in power, you get the power in power, and that gets corrupted, and then you go on, and you end up with a system where now the government jobs are the best jobs you can get because you can't get fired from them. You have all kinds of benefits. You get your sick days, and if you don't take them, you lose them, so you need to take them. And I guess they can even get paid for them now. You get sick days added up. If you just don't get sick, you can get revenue for those sick days, which is kind of contrary to what the design of those things are supposed to be. But that's government. Government works for one thing and one thing only, and that's the government. And the people of the government work for one thing and one thing only, and that's the other people of the government. So I don't know why we have such a hard time figuring this stuff out. It's pretty easy for me to figure out. And I always knew that Obama was an empty suit. I could never see what the hell he had done in his life other than be a community organizer. And I thought that would be the last type of person you'd ever want for a president, because all a community organizer is a rebel rouser. They churn everything up, create turmoil, create problems, so then they can claim, now that they have a problem to point to, that they're the ones to fix it. They forget to tell you or identify the fact that they're the ones that caused the problem. But that's the way they work. That's what they do. They have to create problems so they can fix the problems. The Republican or the conservative way of doing things for years and years at least used to be that, you take care of yourself. You create your own way in life. You pave your own road, and the best job you do, you get rewarded. Those that can't do that are not producers but takers, they need someone to give them a check so they can sign it on the back. And the word there was give, because they don't earn. They don't know how to earn. They don't know how to create anything. All they know how to do is get a job, get a check, sign the check on the back, and then go sit at your desk, go online, look at your sex shows there or whatever you do as a government employee, like many have been caught doing, and don't have any job to do because you're a bureaucrat. You don't have anything that you have to live up to. You don't have any merit-based promotions or pay or anything. You just get your pay. You even get a bonus. How many IRS employees got bonuses when the whole system was crashing and burning with Lois Lerner and testimony and taking the fifth? Here's the IRS person in charge of collecting revenue for the government taking the fifth. I mean, kind of like Hillary Clinton. I never Heard any on my sir? What the hell is she talking about? She's a typical, what is the word is, and she always parses things. She'll say something like, "I never said anything that was marked classified." Keyword marked. Well, if you're the Secretary of State, isn't just about everything you get? Shouldn't one classify that as maybe being something not for everyone's eyes? And then she did what, like 60,000 emails that she had to wipe clean, like with a cloth, or however she figured out how to do that. But she claimed that all those were just about her mother and about the wedding of Chelsea and yoga classes. So 60,000 emails about yoga and Chelsea's wedding. Amazing. That is one busy lady arranging that wedding, I'll tell you what. I don't know how she had time to be Secretary of State. All that traveling that she takes credit for, that's her resume. I traveled and traveled and traveled. Well, I don't know what you get done sitting on an airplane, but I guess she wasn't emailing because she didn't email except for, wedding arrangements and stuff, so she wasn't working. But anyways, it's quite an interesting thing. You really see the disparity between the conservatives and their candidates and the liberals and their candidates. Here they posted somebody to be president of the United States up for nomination, and she's a criminal. She's lied to the American people, and who did she lie to? She lied to people that had family members, their sons in a lot of cases, who died serving their country. And Hillary Clinton, as Secretary of State, lied to the parents and the mothers of these people. What kind of person is that? Is that someone that we would even think about accepting as a president of the United States? Not me. She is despicable. She is the worst piece of dog meat possible. Oh, dogs. Oh, that's right. We have to train those dogs to be able to tell when there's lies being said. Well, let me tell you something. The dog would die from voice attack if they had to laugh every time they were around Hillary. They'd never stop laughing. These people, all they do is lie. They never tell you the truth. They can't, because the truth and their policies are terrible. They don't work. They just don't work. And history's proven that over and over and over again. So what are you going to do? I mean, these people, they're the ones on the stage promising to be Santa Claus. They're going to give everything away. How is that going to work? We are approaching $20 trillion in a deficit for paying our bills. That's like interest or something that we have to. It's a deficit. That's not what we owe. Our mandates and the things that we have to pay are what we actually owe is like approaching $200 trillion. Those are entitlements and whatnot. Pensions, Social Security, Medicare. I mean, these are serious, serious issues where a huge part of our budget on a yearly basis is already gone up to what we owe for entitlements. So if we have to cut expenses, where are we going to cut them from? Entitlements, something that we've promised the people throughout their working lives, that we were going to do this and that for them, Medicare and Social Security and all that stuff. And now what are we going to do? We're going to means test it? Means test. I love these words they come up with in Washington. Means test it. What the hell does that mean? It means steal your benefits. That's what it means. But of course, government employees, they can't call it what it is. So means test it. Jesus Christ. Why don't you call a spade a spade? It's theft. Of course, they can't do that and run on their records because they're the ones that are doing the stealing. So everything has to be a smoke screen. Smoke and mirrors in Washington, D.C. Nothing is as it seems. Take the unemployment rate, 4.9%, Obama touts. What a great job he's done as president. I heard Al Sharpton on something the other day supporting what a great job Obama's done for the black people. He's lowered unemployment. He's done this. He's raised their wages. He's done every single thing out of his mouth was a friggin' lie. These are false facts. They have a way of maneuvering around. They don't tell you the rest of the story. They just tell you part of it. And even the part of it they're telling you I don't think's true. But at any rate, they're a bunch of liars. The two-party system doesn't work in this country. We need to get rid of it. We need to make that a corrupt organization classification. We need either the Supreme Court to make it illegal, eliminate it from the face of this country, or we need to do it on a ballot initiative type basis, where the next presidential election we have it on the ballot to declare that the political parties are hereby corrupt and illegal, and they won't be tolerated anymore in the United States. What do they do for you as a voter? What do they do? Do they do anything for you at all? They don't do anything for me. I don't know a single voter that could say with a clear face what the Democrat or the Republicans, either party, does for you. What they do is they work with special interest groups to be a conduit for money that is funneled to various congressmen, senators, and so forth to buy their support of whatever the special interests want as legislation or whatever that's going to support whatever they want to do so they can make money. And when they make money, they turn around and they give part of that money to the candidates that supported that endeavor. That's called in any other business illegal, but when you're Congress and Senate, it's called, campaign contributions or whatever it's called. Whatever it's called, you can rest assured one thing, it's not what it is. It's going to be the opposite. And these people really need to go to jail. But we don't have enough room in our jails because, at least Obama's trying to help in that respect by letting all these felons out. I guess, and then they're going to pass the right that the felons can vote. So, by the Democrats letting them out of jail, that's more votes for them. Just like the kiddies strapped on tops of trains coming in over the border. They're potential Democrat votes. So this is how they're going to control the country, folks, and they're going to destroy the country. If we let these people take over any more states like they've taken over California, New York, we are in serious, serious trouble. When a candidate like Hillary Clinton can have a chance of winning an election, not by votes from the people, but by special delegates, super delegates, whatever they're called, whatever the fixing is that they're trying to distort the election results to get her elected as president of the United States, you got to be kidding me. If she were ever get elected in any position of leadership, let alone president, this country is in serious, serious trouble because the Democrats have somehow hijacked the election process and they've distorted it into despicability and corruption. And that's the word, folks. I've been talking about it for days and days, corruption. That's a cancer. It doesn't get better if you wait till the next day. It gets worse. And every day after, it gets worse and worse and worse. And corruption corrupts, and absolute corruption corrupts absolutely. That's an old saying that's, it's rock solid as far as truth goes. And you can go to the bank on it as if the banks are worth anything anymore because they don't protect your money. They just turn around and give it to crooked judges and crooked lawyers. And, you end up with a situation that there where the country is going down the tubes because you can't rely upon anything anymore. You don't have any security. You don't have any laws that mean anything. Because when you have enforcement officials that don't uphold the laws and enforce them against the people that are supposed to be in charge of the laws, your country's shot. You're not going to come out of this. This is a death spiral, and it's never going to get better. It's only going to get worse and worse and worse. And somehow this despicability needs to be corrected, and we need to get on the right track. And good luck getting there, but we have to start with the election of Donald Trump as president, a leader. At least from the top down, we can start to get some things straightened out. I'm trying to put my name in for a U-Haul franchise in Washington, D.C. area because you'll be very successful for the next year. Starting next January, you'll probably have a pretty good year with the people moving out of Washington, all the special interest people, the vote buyers, and all those specialists that control the Senate and the House. they're going to be looking around for a job, and it won't be in Washington, D.C. So, we have a chance. It'll be interesting to see what happens. I know I look at the Republicans and what their plans are to try to do away with Trump, and maybe they're going to have a brokered convention, and they're going to try and manipulate, kind of like the Democrats did with their superdelegates, and the Republicans are going to try to come up with some trick because they've been caught. The people are sick and tired. For the last 2 cycles, the voters have made a change in the Congress and the Senate, and primarily due to Obamacare and some other things that were jammed down our throat that nobody liked and nobody supported except Obama. And as a result, we've had a big change in the attitude of the American voter to where they're sick and tired of the crap that goes on in Washington, D.C. So along comes a guy like Trump that sings the same tune. He's sick of it too, but he's in a position where he can do something about it and do something with his own wherewithal to where he doesn't have to bite the hand that feeds it, so to speak, because he's his own hand. So he's not like a Rubio or a Cruz or any of the others you want to throw out there, go to Washington, D.C., and they get sucked up by the operatives there that are only representing the special interest groups that take the congressmen and the senators out to lunch the first day they arrive in town, and they buy their votes with an envelope stuffed full of cash. And then every month they get an envelope, and pretty soon you forget who the people are that elected you. Now you're just working for the special interest groups of Washington. And this is what we have to change. When I first heard on the first day that I heard that Donald Trump was going to run for president, man, oh man, was I excited, because I know he can do away with that. And that's the corruption I've been talking about for months and months. This country has a serious, serious cancer, and we have to get rid of the corruption. That's what the problem is. And you've got our monetary system is broken. It's in desperate shape. You have Soros is probably controlling our money, if you can imagine that, because he makes money on betting against the dollar and then betting for the dollar and back against the dollar, and whichever way he can mass up millions of dollars that he can turn around and support his cronies in government. That's the way that little deal works. And, it's absolutely, the whole system is broken. And one of the problems is you have these very few people that wear these black robes, and they don't know what the hell they're doing. They're totally incompetent, and they're working on things and going way off their venue of expertise many, many, many times. And they do it anyways because they've got the title and they got this and that, and they have egos, and they would never admit that they don't know their ass from their elbow, but in many cases they don't. And take example, this thing on Apple Computer. I don't agree with any of this, not even in the biggest stretch of any, it's for safety. Bullshit. That's crazy. And who the hell does this judge think he is that he can order a company that's a public company, there's stockholders and so forth, that to do something that they can't do? Who are you? Who died and made you God? I don't understand that whole scenario. And then you got these goody two-shoe liberal thinking weirdos out there. Well, we have to. It's for the safety of the children. I mean, come on. Give me a break. Get a brain, will you? I mean, you can't allow a government to do something it can't do, period. In our Constitution of the United States, there were certain things that the government was elected to do, if you will, or created to do, and everything that's not in the Constitution is supposed to be relegated to the states, because this was a deal between the states and the federal government. We're coming to a negotiation. I wish Trump was around back then, but they did a negotiation where they were going to be a consortium, if you will. The federal government was going to take care of the states and do the things that only a cooperative government in charge of things could do, like safety, an army, whatever, to protect those states. Build roads, for example, that go from state to state. If it wasn't the government doing that, you'd end up with roads like you do in the county roads, where you're driving through one state, you come to another state, and the nice road you're on all of a sudden turns to dirt because the state you just went into didn't have enough money to fix up the roads, so the road deteriorates. That's what you would get on these superhighways going from state to state. If it was up to the state to do it, you'd never have any uniformity in the roads. There'd be a calamity. Same thing, I guess, with the air travel and the regulation of the airplanes to make them safe, the aviation control. Some things the government has to do, and only the government can really do it. But everything else you need to leave to the people of the states that are community organized, if you will, to where they have a local action. I remember the days I was in the energy business, drilling oil wells and gas wells and stuff, and I knew a lot of people that were in the coal business. And for example, like in the Kentucky, where they have nothing but these big hills in eastern Kentucky, which is terrible land. It's really rough stuff. And coal companies would go in there because in these hills is full of coal. So they'd go in there with these gigantic equipment, and they would literally level these mountains to get the coal out. Well, our illustrious government comes up with this stupid friggin' government idea. Well, you have to restore the land to its original contour. Well, that may work good in Texas or Oklahoma or someplace else, but in Kentucky, it's stupid. There's no other way to relay it but other than stupid, okay? Because here you have these worthless hills. You can't do a goddamn thing with them. You can't even climb up to the top of them without falling on your ass. And now the coal companies come in there with tons and tons of equipment, and on an economical basis, because they're actually making revenue doing it, they level the mountains. And then prior to this government coming in and screwing everything up, at the end of the day, when the coal companies leave, you end up with this nice flat area that become towns, schools, parks, you name it, but there's something you can use. Well, that was too much sense for the government. Here they come and they make you put back the mountains. Can you think of anything stupider? This is what the government does. The government is stupid. It's run by stupid people that don't have to account to anybody. They're bureaucrats. They get a job. They're set for life. And the biggest thing they have to do is be careful that they don't step on anybody's toes. And the best way to do that is don't do anything. And they don't. They don't know what to do. And the leadership that comes from up top is stupid. Like Trump says, we're run by a bunch of morons. And when you pass a regulation, you have to rebuild the mountains. That's stupid. And then in the oil business, I drill these wells, and we get oil and produce the oil. And then after a while, the oil starts coming with seawater. So you end up with salt water with the oil. So you take the salt water, you bleed it off the tanks into a pool, a pond that you make out by the tank batteries where you're storing the oil. And so you end up with a pond full of salt water. Well, the cows love that because they love salt. So they come up and they drink the water because they like the salt. If it wasn't for the ponds there, the farmers have to get these big salt blocks to give to their cows because cows, I guess, need salt. Oh, here comes the government. Oh, you have to put that water back in the ground. You have to inject it into the ground where it came from, and then it's a hazardous waste. So you have all these regulations that you have to jump through because this salt water is now, according to this government bureaucrat, is hazardous. Well, if salt water was hazardous, 3/4 of the world is salt water, we'd all be dead. But this is the stuff you get from the government. It is a bunch of idiots, okay? Now, the government does have a few things that it does, a few things that it may even do well, not many, but they have to limit themselves to keep focused on what their job is and what they're supposed to do and what they do well. And they can't do everything. That's for goddamn sure. They're lucky to be able to do what they need to do somewhat sensibly, because most of everything they touch turns to crap. So we have to watch it as the people of this country. It's our country. We have to make sure that our government works. Otherwise, we need to limit it and make sure that it goes back to the way the founders founded this country and gave the government a limited government, certain things that only they can do, and they need to do that and concentrate on doing that well. Everything else, stay the hell away from it. Education is one of them. Our education system in this country is deplorable. We spend more money on students than any other country, and we have one of the lowest literate rates for the students. Students don't do well in this country. You take the students from China and other Asian countries, and they do fabulous because they have a whole culture of education, and that works for them. And it doesn't work over here. And you have money. You pay these teachers, and then the teachers say, well, they can be an administrator where they don't have to play around with the kiddies and teach them anything anymore. That's tough, especially when you don't know anything yourself. So you become an administrator, and then you get this big paycheck. You have a title, and then you do even less than you did before. Way, way, way less. You do nothing now. You become an administrator. So now the classes get bigger and bigger, where the teachers can't teach more and more students because the ratio gets all out of whack. And then you got more and more and more and more administrators, which do nothing but clutter up the mess and make it worse. So we have to get smart. We have to start running things efficiently. And we need to get the government controlled the hell out of things that they don't need to be in, because they'll mess it up every single time. They're a terrible bunch of incompetent boobs, and it's terrible. So hopefully this election we can get Trump in there to start with, and from there we can get some good leadership. We can start cleaning out some of the dead wood that we have in the Senate and the Congress, and try to get some good results there. Start eliminating some of these ridiculous federal regulations that we have. The Federal Register, I heard the other day, is over 800,000 pages. What the hell is that thing? Who can read that? I mean, you have people in like Nancy Pelosi. We have to pass the bill to see what's in it. And we're talking about a 2,000-page bill that no one's read. I don't think anyone in Congress, or very few, can read, to tell you the truth. So, I mean, we just have a mess. We have an absolute mess. If it can ever be straightened out, good luck to us, because once things start to go bad, this bad, usually the end result's not good. You take, like the Roman Empire was around for a few years, and they were doing good. They were a good, productive, producing country. Then they all became fat, and they'd lie around in their orgies with their togas and everything, and they became a country of consumers rather than producers. And then they ran out of money, and they didn't have any money to buy anything because they couldn't produce anything anymore, and the whole empire collapsed. That's the natural way things go. Things end up going one way for too long, and they fall off the cliff. And thank God that America has enough natural resources that we have more lasting power than other places like the Roman Empire had. So maybe we can last a little longer. Let's hope so. And maybe what goes around comes around, and we can get this country straightened out with some good leadership. We certainly have a chance, but you've got all the people entrenched in power that are bitching and complaining and doing their best to make sure that we don't get a guy like a Trump in power that will do, what does he want to do? He wants to make America great again. What a terrible guy to have trying, right? We'd rather have a Hillary Clinton or a Bernie Sanders that wants to tax everybody to death. He doesn't have any clue about how to do anything that'll work. He's never done anything in his career in the Senate or as a mayor. I don't think he did anything except live in his mother's basement till he was about 40, from what I hear. So he's a loser. He doesn't have anything. He's never created anything. He's always worked on the dole for the government. And this is a guy that we want to elevate to the highest position in the land. He doesn't know economy. He doesn't know foreign affairs. He doesn't know anything. pure and simple. He knows nothing. But the Democrat committee put him up there for only one purpose and one purpose only, and that was to try to make Hillary Clinton look good. For whatever reason, there was some kind of a thing going on where they felt that they owed her something. I don't know what the hell that is, because the Clinton administration from back in Bill's days was one of the worst administrations we ever had in this country as far as gates go and corruption. It was gate after gate after gate, file gate, travel gate, FBI gate. I mean, you name it. It was gate after gate after Vince Foster gate. I mean, everything was a gate. And then you had the Monica Lewinsky thing and the Bimbo Eruption Squad. And I mean, my God, and this is the presidency of the United States? You got to be kidding me. And now the name Clinton is being revived again to go back to the same old crap. You got to be kidding me. I mean, this is just mind-blowing to me. Absolutely mind-blowing. I don't get it. I don't understand it for a second. And this is what this country is faced with. It's just the Democrats and the progressives decades ago came out with a plan to dumb down the young people being educated in this country. They took over the schooling and everything with their teachers and then their professors in college that were all liberal-minded socialists in a way, and they dumbed down the younger people going through their education years, and they've come out of that with policies and things to where they don't know how to do anything. And they don't know if their mashed potatoes are good unless someone tells them that they're good or bad. They don't know on their own. So you have some real clowns coming out. And that's exactly what the progressives wanted, was to dumb down the American electorate so they could stay in power. And now we have a despicable show of what their power has produced. It's produced a Hillary Clinton who's a liar, who lies to family members about their dead service members, lies about emails, never had any classified documents. Well, I think we're over 1,000 or something documents now that have been considered seriously classified. Some are so classified they can't even, no one can see them. I mean, it's outrageous, this woman. And she's supposed to be a leader of this country. And I think there's some other issues going on with her. Of course, they won't be trustworthy. They'll never admit to anything. But I think Hillary Clinton has some health issues that are going to prevent her from even serving one day as anything. I think she's sick. I really do. And I'm not saying that because I hate her and detest her, although I do. I think she's sick. You hear things like the Secret Service are almost literally carrying her to the car because she can't walk a straight line. I don't know. She went to that bathroom deal here when she was debating on the stage. Maybe it was even Wynn, I think it was. But anyways, they started the debate without her, and she came back late, blaming it on some line at the bathroom. But I think there was something else going on. She was trying to recompose herself because she was having some kind of a health issue going on, from what I understand. But at any rate, of course, there won't be any medical records or anything coming forth because the only ones that have to produce stuff like that are the other side, because the Democrats get a pass on everything, a pass from the media. Nobody vets them. Nobody holds them accountable for anything. And this is one of the biggest problems that this government has. We need to get it straightened out. Believe me, it's bad. And somehow we as the people that this country was founded for, we have to demand that we take our country back. And when push comes to shove, I don't know anyone that can stop us legally. So you have to get the people that are in the enforcement efforts and whatever that's in place, attorney generals, for example, you've got to get them to be held accountable for upholding the law. And when a judge breaks the law, or a sheriff, or somebody, a policeman, anybody that's not upholding the law that's actually breaking it, we need to get them out of office. And we make sure that the people that are in charge of enforcing the laws do just that. They enforce the laws. This is what we have to have. And we have to get our country back to where we're a country of laws. And we need to get competent people that understand things, that can add two and two together and come out with the right answer. And to not try to have an agenda that they just obscure things, because muddy waters is the way that they hide things from people. They don't answer a question, they answer another question. Or they take language and they change a word here and a word there, and they change it around and make it mean something completely different. And this is something that we really have to be careful of. As people know me, they know I've been involved in a case with the court system here in Nevada and also other places. And the court system in this state, my experience anyways, and I hear from others that have had similar experiences, although mine is particularly different in a way because it's so blatantly obvious of what was done. And we have the proof and the documents and all the evidence of what was done. And that's kind of rare, that a judge would be so out of it that he signs orders and does things that are totally illegal and doesn't think twice about it. And I think the judge in this particular case stayed on the bench a little too long. He should have not run for re-election the previous time when he ran, or he should have resigned somewhere along his last term before he got to the end of his term, because he definitely is not qualified to be a judge. That's for damn sure. He broke the law. And now we have this brand new appellate court that has actually affirmed, if you will, a void law, because what this Judge Earl did, he made a ruling, a judgment, order that was against the U.S. Supreme Court decision, which is the law of the land. And the law of the land was also constitutionally protected by the 14th Amendment, so he violated the Constitution of the country also. So he's done a couple things that are just unbelievable for a judge to do. I mean, that's Judge 101. You just don't do that. And the appellate court writes an opinion, and you can see by reading this opinion how they struggle to come up with some way to protect this judge, because judges don't want to hold other judges accountable for anything. It's kind of like an old good boy network, you try to protect your own. Well, in this particular situation, the appellate court did some kind of suspicious stuff, and when you really, really analyze it and look at what they did, this last affirmation that they call it on ruling that Judge Earl made, they affirmed my points on several levels. And that means to me that they're agreeing with the important issues in this case, although they're trying to call it something else to protect the judge. But for example, there's a U.S. Supreme Court decision, Hansen versus Deckler, that complies with the U.S. Supreme Court and the Constitution of the United States. When it was founded, the Constitution, it was a negotiation between what was going to become the federal government and the states at the time. And there was negotiation there to where the states were going to sign on to this idea of a federal government, and in turn, the states were going to be have sovereignty between the other states. So you were giving up some rights for the federal government to have, communicable rights that only a common government can do, protection, war, army, things of that nature. And the states between themselves would maintain sovereignty from one state to another. So a state could not control another state's property, for example. And then as time passes by, the states enact their own trust law. And the United States government always stayed away from that because they called it a probate exception, to where the federal government can't interfere with a state in any way in their laws and their public policy. So the states would come up with their own state trust law that they would promote and protect and within the borders of their state for the properties that were held in trust, and no other state can control those properties. Well, that's the way it is. That's the way it's always been, and way before the United States was around, because trust law goes back hundreds of years, even past the Roman days, I think. But at any rate, this judge he has an agenda. His agenda was to pay the lawyers that practice in his court. Whether they win or lose in the case doesn't matter to this judge, because he had to raise campaign contributions to the federal, or not to the federal, to the judge system, so that they would have campaign revenue that they could use to run for re-election or what have you. So that's the way that they raise money when you're a judge. You extort money from the lawyers that practice in your court, because if a lawyer doesn't participate and donate to your campaign cause in a healthy basis, that lawyer's not going to make too well out in your court. And this is the way that they do things. This is illegal, but because they're judges, they get away with it. And that's a despicable way to run the country, a despicable way to run a court. And we have to put a stop to it. We have to come up with a different way to elect judges than that system. But at any rate, here comes the Earl. He makes a ruling to where he forces the sale of a home in another state. And why did he do that? To pay lawyers in the state of Nevada that contribute to Nevada judge campaigns. So it's all an extortion deal. It's all corrupt is what it is. So, I always felt confident. I knew the law of the land. I knew what it's supposed to be. I know what it is. And the court couldn't do this. So anyways, this appellate court, which is the Supreme Court, they started a new appellate court to take some of the workload off of the Supreme Court, because they're swamped with 2,000 or better cases a year that they have to plow through, because the lower court judges can't get anything right. So a lot of cases get appealed to a higher court, because the lower court judges are all ex-lawyers and they're ex-mud, and they deal in corruption, and they deal in things to where they can't add two and two after a while. So you end up with all these funny decisions that have to be corrected. And the appellate court is supposed to rule by law and correct any mistakes that were made by the lower court. Well, the lower court in my case made a ton of mistakes. Very, very serious mistakes, unconstitutional mistakes. So it goes to the appellate court. And what does the appellate court do? Well, you have to really, really read it, because they were struggling through this thing, and you can read it knowing their agenda was to protect the judge, and you can see what they're trying to do. They are going to great lengths to protect this judge. So they rule that the Hansen and Deckler decision, which is a U.S. Supreme Court decision, first of all, they distort the language a little bit. That's one of their tricks, that they try to get you off base. But at any rate, they said a statement that the case was involved with property that was in Florida. Well, that was a false statement, because that's not what the case was about at all. The truth came out in the next line of their decision, was that the property wasn't actually held in Florida. Now, why that first statement's there, I have no idea. That's weird. But anyways, they finally got the right decision, that the property was not in Florida. And as a result of the property not being in Florida, the court determined that personal jurisdiction could not apply on that basis either. So they basically said that my case, and I've been saying all along that the state of Nevada did not have subject matter jurisdiction over property in another state like New Hampshire, and they don't. And this Supreme Court or appellate court actually stated that in the language of their affirmation. They concurred that the Hansen and Deckler decision backed the fact that without jurisdiction, or without the property being within the borders of Nevada, Nevada did not have subject matter jurisdiction over the issue. And therefore, like I've been saying, the state of Nevada does not have subject matter jurisdiction. But then this court, in their attempt, their agenda to try to protect this judge, they go on to say that the personal jurisdiction didn't matter if the property wasn't within the state, which it doesn't. And then they go and they say, but I never raised an issue of personal jurisdiction over this case in Nevada. And why didn't I? It's because it's irrelevant. Personal jurisdiction doesn't mean a hill of beans when you're talking about an issue where the property is not in this state. It doesn't matter. But this court's trying to divert the focus of the deal and put it on personal jurisdiction. So that's a despicable trick that this new appellate court that hasn't even been around, I guess, for about a year now, is coming out with these rulings to smokescreen everything and try to cover up for a judge that did not abide by the Constitution of the United States. That is a pathetic, pathetic court, and it shouldn't be allowed to exist. It needs to be run out. Nice try, Supreme Court, but you know what? You can't rely upon 3 inferior court judges to make up these rulings because they can't get it right. It's simple as that. Now, let's say I can go a little further here and explain why incompetency comes into play here, because the court saying what they said, that's fine with me. I've never said that the state of Nevada didn't have personal jurisdiction. That's fine with me. They do have personal jurisdiction. But what does personal jurisdiction go to is people. It goes to the persons before you in court, and the judge would have the authority to dictate to those persons that they have to do something personally. But what he can't dictate is that those persons have to do something with property that is outside of the state. In other words, you have to give the judge property so that he can give it to one of his lawyers that contributes to his campaign funds. No, that it doesn't work that way. But so anyways, they lose on that front because personal jurisdiction doesn't go to what Judge Earl tried to do anyway, so that doesn't work. And then there's another thing that these incompetent judges failed to realize, these 3 appellate court judges, is that the trusts involved from New Hampshire are what's called a spendthrift trust. They have them here in Nevada also. It's a trust provision that a settler, someone that has the property, that's going to set up a trust and provide for their beneficiaries, that they put a spendthrift clause in there, and that's to protect the beneficiaries from themselves and from an issue whereby a lawyer or somebody might try to steal their interest. Well, the provision of any trust is that a beneficiary doesn't own anything until the trustee of the trust, whose only job is to make sure that the provisions in the trust are met. The trustee can only do what the settlor has instructed them to do. So they have to abide by the provisions that are in the trust document. And they can't do anything other than that. And another thing that a trustee can't do in a spendthrift trust is distribute money to a beneficiary that is under an attachment or has a judgment against them, whereby any creditor would be able to grab whatever the beneficiary got the minute the trustee gave it to him. So the trustee's working under a spendthrift clause like these trusts are from New Hampshire, that any judge does not have the authority to distribute any money or direct the trustee to distribute any money to anybody until the beneficiary receives the money. He can't do that, so you don't own anything. So in this particular case, the provision, as the law is, the judge in Nevada couldn't do what he did anyway. So the Supreme Court or the appellate court decision, as far as I'm concerned, is lawful, but they just have to go to the next part of the law that clarifies what the law means that they can do and what it can't do. So, this court didn't do the job, didn't finish the job. They may have determined the law to be what it was, which is fine, but they didn't go the rest of the mile and straighten out something that was done wrong. But that's what courts do. They're incompetent. They don't get the whole picture, and they have an agenda, and their agenda doesn't meet what they want to do, so they distort things. That's what happens. Anyways, folks, I'll bring it up later.